Hello everyone, welcome back. Thanks so much for watching once again. Today we're going to dive deep into the world of Islamic arrogance and ignorance. I posted a video recently, a Song of Solomon 5:16. This is where Muslims claim that Muhammad is secretly encoded into the text of the Song of Solomon. I have the word here highlighted in Hebrew and in English as well, and there's a comment on that video posted by someone. I put his name in Google Translate. It comes up with sparkling brilliance. That's a little bit long, so we're just going to call him Mr. Sparkles for short. And Mr. Sparkles says, it is an adjective, and that's why your translations got it as an adjective. Okay, so this individual is trying to take the English translation and read that back into the Hebrew and figure out what part of speech it is, because he doesn't know Hebrew. Now, you may say, well, he doesn't know Hebrew. How is it that he's telling us how you can translate the Hebrew text? I mean, it seems like a prerequisite to translating between two languages is that you know both of those languages, not in the world of Islamic ignorance and arrogance. Okay, why is it? Why you may think it's hypocritical. Why is it that Muslims who are always saying, you need to learn Arabic, you need to learn Arabic, why is it that they can tell us how we can translate the Hebrew Bible when they don't know Hebrew? You think that's hypocritical, but it's actually not hypocritical. Here's how they can do that. Muslims are going to read whatever they want out of the Bible anyway. It doesn't matter what languages they know. So why spend years learning Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, syntax, morphology, vocabulary, all this stuff? Why do that when you're just going to make the text say whatever you want it to, right? So just save yourself all the trouble. Don't learn the languages and pretend like you're still qualified to tell us how the text can be translated, right? So that's the strategy here. Now, this person says it's an adjective. Again, I don't know why. Why does it matter that it's an adjective to this person? But I go to my exegetical guide for Song of Solomon 5:16, noun, masculine, plural, absolute, mahmadim, right? It's a noun. Well, let's check that. That's got to be wrong because we have a Muslim who doesn't know Hebrew telling us that it's an adjective. So let's check again. Dictionary of Biblical Languages, noun. That's odd. BDB, noun. I'm beginning to think maybe our Muslim friend, Mr. Sparkles, doesn't know what he's talking about. Let's go to his other comment. He says adjective for the person the passage is talking about. Okay, given he's so concerned about this being an adjective, again, I don't know why, I asked the question, what noun is the adjective modifying? And I had to ask this several times. I knew he was going to give me an answer, and I knew that answer was going to violate Hebrew grammar. So I asked over and over. That's why you can see the exclamation point. I think he was a little frustrated at this point that I kept asking the same question. Finally, he gave me the answer. The adjective, the so-called adjective in the Islamic dictionary of Hebrew, is actually modifying the noun of the noun which is the person that the passage is talking about. But there's a problem with that. This so-called adjective is in the plural form. Again, it's a noun, but let's pretend like it's an adjective. It's in the plural form. The person the passage is talking about is singular. Hebrew adjectives match their nouns in number. So you're not going to have a plural adjective modifying a singular noun that violates Hebrew grammar. But this person doesn't know that because they don't know Hebrew morphology, so they don't know the nouns in the plural form anyway. Now, what conclusion does this all lead to? He thinks it's an adjective, Mr. Sparkles. Turns out it's not an adjective, but it's translated as an adjective in the English translation. What does that mean? Well, here comes the word that Muslim parents teach their kids before anything else. Before mommy, before daddy, before Tawheed, before Muhammad, before Quran, comes this other word, corruption. And that's where Mr. Sparkles takes us. He says, yet your smart man, why thank you, has just proven corruption from the Christians. So let's jump into Song of Solomon 5:16, and we're going to look a little bit at how corrupted it is. We're going to look at how corrupted these Christians have made these English translations. Now, Christians, this is going to challenge your faith. I can assure you. It's a trial by fire of your English translation. Speaking of fire, by the time we're done with this, you'll probably want to burn those non-literal English translations. Okay? You're going to want to burn them. Like Uthman burned the source material that he used to piece together the first Quran. You're going to want to burn them like Muhammad burned the eyes of those guys out in the desert. That's how bad it's going to be, okay? Let's jump into Song of Solomon 5:16. I have the Tyndale Old Testament commentary pulled up. We'll do 3 examples, okay? We'll do 3 examples. Again, Christians, prepare to have your faith shaken. Here we go. He's referring to sweets, another word that occurs previously there in verse 16, the Hebrew plural, sweets, is used as an intensive. So he's talking about why these nouns are in the plural form. It's an intensive form. Serves to focus the emphasis, okay? A little helpful background for understanding our word. Translated here, altogether desirable. Another plural form here, desirables, reinforces the emphatic structure. And then he gives a sort of a literal rendering of the reading. Everything about him is, catch this, delightfulnesses. Delightfulnesses. That would be a more literal translation. If your translation doesn't have delightfulnesses, it's corrupt. Okay? Now, I know a bunch of Christians just paused the video and went out and started burning your non-literal translations, but there's more. These translators have more tricks up their sleeve, and we're going to look at two very well-known passages, and I'm going to show you what we're talking about. Okay, that's the first one. Christians, wipe the tears from your eyes. This is bad. It gets worse. I'm sorry. I have to break this to you. Let's go to Exodus chapter 3. This is a very well-known passage. Moses and the burning bush, etc. Moses is standing before God. He's told, take your shoes off because the ground on which you are standing is holy. At least that's what you think it says. And when I show you, again, you're going to want to burn your non-literal translations, the ones you still have maybe left over even after the first burning from our Song of Solomon 5:16. You're going to want to burn your non-literal translations like Muhammad wanted to burn down the houses of Muslims who wouldn't come out to the mosque. So right here, the place that you are standing, ground, holy, it. Okay? You notice I left out a word. You have a preposition here which has a suffix, pronoun at the end of it. The way this actually reads in the Hebrew, the place that you are standing upon it is holy ground. Upon it is left out of the translation. This is something called a resumptive pronoun in Hebrew, okay? So resumptive pronouns, the video you are watching, it is on YouTube. It's bad grammar in English, but it's not in Hebrew. And these things are everywhere. These resumptive pronouns are everywhere. And they're not translated because your translations are corrupt, according to a random Muslim, Mr. Sparkles on YouTube, who doesn't know Hebrew. Let's look at one more corruption. This one comes from 1 Samuel, and this one's really bad, okay? It's another well-known phrase. Every Christian's going to know this phrase, may not know where it is or whatever, but you're going to know the phrase. We're going to look at it and see what it actually says. And this is an example of a translator actually changing the part of speech. It's kind of like what happens there in the Song of Solomon. They change parts of speech. Can you imagine that? The corruption. So here's our passage in 1 Samuel 15. And after this one, you're going to want to burn your non-literal translations. You're going to want to set a fire to them, just like Muhammad set a fire to that Jew who wouldn't tell him where his money was. Here's the phrase. This is to obey, an infinitive construct. And then you have sacrifice with a preposition affixed to it, and good. Now you may already pick up on the phrase, to obey is better than to sacrifice. But that's not what the Hebrew says. It says, to obey from sacrifice good. So you have, in English, we primarily use adjectives to establish or to show comparative or superlative relationships. In Hebrew, it's prepositions, okay? So whereas we would use a term like better, in Hebrew they use from, all right? This preposition mean is a very common way to show this comparative or superlative relationship. And so you have to obey from sacrifice good. All right, to obey is better than to sacrifice. When the translators translate things like this, they actually change the part of speech from a preposition to an adjective, and they do that to give us an idiomatic translation that captures the meaning of what the Hebrew text says, even though the parts of speech may not carry over one for one. Evidence of the corruption of English translations. I cannot get over the colossal ignorance of Muslims like this, buffered once again by arrogance. I just know by reading these comments, on the other side of the screen, there's some first grader sitting there with a lollipop in one hand in his SpongeBob SquarePants pajamas. I mean, I do not, it's beyond my comprehension how an adult could think something so ignorant. Dealing with Muslims is a constant reminder of John chapter 8. Anyway, that's all for this video. Thank you for enduring with me a little sample of what I deal with every day. On one of my 70-something videos, there are comments like this that just show the horrible mixture of the Islamic arrogance and ignorance. It's quite a toxic cocktail, and definitely need to keep Muslims in our prayers as we continue to talk to these people. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.